Let's get into Parasite first. That was what Brennan recommended to me. I was going to see it anyway because I heard it was fantastic, and I wanted to try and see all of the main nominees for this year's Academy Awards, but I was really glad that I watched this
I would
movie.
like to just throw on for the record. Obviously, this movie's been getting crazy great reviews, and it was nominated before we even talked about this, but I did suggest it before it was Best Picture. I'm not just the guy who was like, looking at the list.
Best Picture.
Yeah, that one's apparently good.
No,
I really do like Parasite a lot. What were your thoughts about it? I'm super excited to hear about
Parasite. So I saw The Lighthouse pretty much when it came out, and I was like, 10 out of 10, amazing, best movie of the year. I cannot see anything topping this.
I think I saw them both in a week.
When I got to like the midway point in Parasite, when they're all like sitting around the table, well, we won't go into spoilers yet, but when they're towards the midway point where they're sitting around the table at the rich white family's house,
not home.
I was like, and everything that starts to happen I was like, the Lighthouse might be getting a run for its money. At the end of it, I was like, no, Robert Eggers still is number one.
He still got you there.
Yeah, but I would easily, like, this is probably my second favorite movie of the year. Definitely one of the best international movies I've seen in a long time. It was wonderful, fantastic. And I mean, he has a bunch of good titles to his name. Mother, I haven't seen all of it yet, but I've seen the first third of it. The Host, I'm pretty sure he did as well. Fantastic.
Both great. Okja is very good.
I haven't seen that one yet, but I've heard it was great.
And this is me saying it without having any information about the source material either, but I really liked the movie, as it were.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was
Snowpiercer, obviously.
I haven't seen Snowpiercer either.
Wow.
I was a little hesitant because it's like I find it like weird sometimes when like you have when there's like a director who's like really good at working with like his talent and so like in this instance
South Korean
like,
actors,
South Korean, and I'm worried that there's going to be like the fact that he's working with English actors, something is going to get literally lost in translation, and they're not going to do justice to what he wants to do necessarily.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You don't. It is especially. I mean, like Tilda Swinton is in Snowpiercer and Okja, and like. I mean, his translator is very good, and she's actually, she's a director, his translator.
Was she the same one who did, like, the speeches for him?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And apparently she's working on a movie about awards season, and, like, being somebody going through the award circuit, and it's like, is that going to be a horror movie, or, like, what? But I would say, like, that's not an, like, unfair criticism, or, like, an unfair, like, worry, really, is what it is, not a criticism. Okay. It's not. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, like, when you get Chris Evans, you know, he's perfectly suitable for the role. I think he does just a fine job. I don't think he's the best actor in the world, you know?
Right.
I think the acting is... it's hard to say. I mean, as Chris Evans is your lead in that movie, so it's you're looking at him acting most of the time.
And I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really, like...
Yes. So for me, I would say...
But
I really like the performances he gets out of like anybody. I think he really kind of knows what he's doing, and it's it's like one of those things where it's like, put on my art school cap here for a second, but it's the beauty of cinema. That's like a universal language. Like you kind of get it. It's themes and everything like that. Where it's like even if we don't have the one-to-one words here, like
I guess like literally lost in translation. That's kind of a bad way to put it. It's just like the styles are usually so different. I feel like.
Absolutely.
So that's my main worry. Is not that literally they're like he's gonna say do it this way, and then the actors interpret it as like I don't know that. Okay, I'll do, like
the difference between Old Boy and the remake of Old Boy.
Exactly. Yeah. So if it was an instance where like Park Chan-wook was like direct was like they were like, we're just going to buy the source material. You come over here and do a 1-to-1 of what you've just did. Yeah. It's probably like it's not nearly going to be as bad as Spike Lee's Old Boy, but it's gonna.
Oh, it's a Spike Lee joint.
Yeah, Spike Lee did the Old Boy remake,
Jeez.
and you can tell his heart's not in it at all. Just watch any interview of him. They're like, so man, you got to be excited about doing an Old Boy remake, and he's like, yeah. It's a reinterpretation.
Somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody had to cash the paycheck.
But yeah, no, it's let's get back on track a little bit here. So it's
Parasite.
Parasite was great. Loved it.
Defy genre.
Yeah.
I can't place a genre on the thing.
I mean, it's definitely like a drama, but it's hard to like. There's so many subgenres of that you can't like. yeah, you just can't put a label on it.
I would almost argue
time.
it's like a dark comedy before it's a drama.
But
it is
especially
a drama,
when it gets towards the end, like the last like 10 minutes or so, you're like, okay, yeah, this is like intense. But up until that point that I mentioned, like it's almost a hard time pinning it as like any one thing. Maybe dark comedy, like you said, but
I don't know if you had this experience. So I mean, I don't know if when you've talked to other people about the movie, the name.
Yeah.
It invokes a lot of things for people who haven't seen the movie, and when you're like, this movie, I like Parasite, it's like, I don't know if I really want, like, what is this thing? Yeah. And it's a great name for the movie. It's like a perfect name for the movie. It's like the perfect metaphor. The whole thing, you know, it's cohesive. It works perfectly.
Right.
In my mind, though, my like dumb American audience mind, I'm going to see the movie. I'm like, so when did they turn into zombies, though? And so you got that scene where they're getting gassed in their apartment, and I'm like, this is where the parasite happens. And it's like, nope, that's just another one of the horrors of capitalism. That like people spray this stuff into your apartment if you're a poor person.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I mean, so I think once I'd heard so many good things about the movie prior to seeing it. I was predisposed to liking it. I like Bong Joon-Ho's work. But when I saw it, and once I could put aside that this isn't taking a horror turn.
Of a dark turn.
Yeah, when it's not doing that, I was like, okay, well, I'm still 100% on board for the ride here. But I do know that it's like, if I felt that way, even for a little bit, you know, so many people are going to see the movie and be like, what is kind of... when does the thing happen?
Well,
you know, so it's...
And the thing does happen, but it's not what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, so for anyone who hasn't seen it, so like, I feel like with bringing up the title, it's a good point to get into, but the movie Parasite is, you have this one family, I forget what their like surname is.
I'm terrible with both.
I know the rich family is the Parks, because they say it a lot, but
the only name I know is the name of the actor of the dad, Song Kang-ho, or something like that.
Because he's been in a lot, though.
Yes, I recognize him.
So he's so you have this family of like poor people who like are just barely like scraping by, doing like odd jobs and all that to get money, like
folding like pizza delivery boxes,
right?
And then like
the upstairs neighbor put a password on their Wi-Fi.
Now we're screwed.
Yeah. So
glorious Wi-Fi.
Exactly. So you have this poor family. And through some ins and outs, it's like a mom, dad, and like two teenage kids, like college-age kids almost. The son ends up getting a tutoring job for this rich family, teaching English to their daughter, who's about the same age. And then leaving that first session, he hears the younger kid is looking for like to have like an art teacher, and he's like, "Oh, well, I see an in here." So he brings in his sister as like this art person. Meanwhile, she's like just a Photoshop, like knows how to fake documents,
which is very
and stuff
fun.
Like
because
that.
when I saw that, when that started clicking, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get the whole gang in here. This is fun."
And it takes its time doing that. But it's so much fun every single step of the way.
Yeah, it is a good time.
It's amazing. So but the gist of it is like, okay, so there's this rich family who's kind of oblivious. Well, the mom's kind of oblivious, and the dad's never around, so he doesn't pick up on it. But so you have this.
People.
Yeah, you have this poor family essentially infiltrates this rich family to exploit them for money, and then things go south.
They go every direction. One thing I would throw in there is, and I think it's like kind of an important part of the movie, because the movie is, at least in my mind, inherently like anti-capitalist. I mean, like Bong Joon-Ho has said as much. He's got that quote where they're like, "Why do you think your movie translates to so many people?" And he said, "I was trying to make a movie that was unique to the South Korean experience, and it turns out we all live in the same country, and it's called capitalism."
Exactly.
Couldn't be more on the nose with that kind of thing. So if you see this movie and like come away from it, you don't even yourself have to believe that capitalism is bad, but if you see it and come away from it not knowing that that is what the director thinks, what's going on in your head? The
perfect example of it that I thought of is like, you mentioned like the fumigation part at the very beginning, but like without spoiling what the context of the scene is, you have that beautiful scene at night where it's up at like the rich estate and it's like raining and they're like looking out the window like, oh, what a beautiful thunderstorm. And then meanwhile down in the city, everyone's apartments are getting flooded and people are losing everything they own. It's everything. Like that's the key moment, I feel like.
And so I think like, you know, maybe people who want to detract from that message want to point up, be like, well, your main characters are like bad people because they're like screwing over
But
the other employees.
Who wouldn't do that?
But who wouldn't,
if you could?
under the circumstances of like capitalism and the environment in which we live in, you're being forced to do that. It's not their fault. You know, it's not great. They're not good people for it necessarily, but it's also like you can't really judge that, you know. And, and so that's just another, you know, way that the movie talks about like it's us versus them. It's, you know, and they want us to tear each other apart in that way. And that's, you know, that's the way the system is, you know, designed or whatever. The movie is like, I mean, it's rich with like metaphors, everything like that. Rock is like a very good one where it's like, you know, it means so much, but it's actually hollow on the inside. And, you know, it's like, I could go into the symbology of that if you needed me to. We get it.
But yeah, everything about that movie, from the way it's performed, the writing, the cinematography, has one of the best montages I've seen in the movie.
Cinematography is great. Yeah. One thing with that movie, where we're talking about like kind of the genre things, and I'm gonna even tie this back, is like horror angles, like horror lighting and horror angles to make you feel a certain way, even though it's not.
Mainly in that second half where things go south, but a lot of it in like the first half too.
Yes,
without even really realizing.
So another thing I wanted to just kind of bring it back. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the horror angles on the Spawn Ranch scene are so good. It really makes you think something's gonna happen, and it doesn't happen in the best way. It's very fun, but like it really is creepy, and it's like I love it when it's like, oh, we know what we're doing here. Like we know how to like elicit this out of you without cheating the feeling out of you. It's like subconscious. So yeah, I mean, like Parasite's certainly incredibly well shot. I mean, the lighting really's got like a beautiful look to it. It's It's like I don't know.
Every frame of painting.
Yeah, it's kind of, but it's got like an iTunes sheen to it. I don't know how exactly to describe it, but it's
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, we can jump all over the place here, but that ending too is just like what a rug pull heartbreaker. I mean, it wasn't so much a rug pull for me because I was like on board with what the movie was saying already. Where I was like, this is not gonna. Yeah, no way. This is reality right here because that's not been the movie we've been watching up to this point where it's gonna give us the happy ending where the kid can somehow buy back that, and his dad has lived fine down there the entire time or whatever.
I guess that's our cue to get into spoilers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I don't think that's too much. I think you gave it just enough. So spoilers, if you haven't seen Parasite, see it in whatever way you can. It might
except on your fucking time.
It might be in theaters still at the time of this recording, but definitely get it any way you can, and it's one of the best of the year.
It's out on Blu-ray and digital now too.
So, okay, cool, perfect. So you have no excuse not to.
No, truly no excuse, you swine.
So the ending. Holy shit.
The ending. Yeah. I mean, so
I guess let's work our way to the ending. Because what I really liked about it is I was on board with it. I was like, man, this is good. I like where this is going. And then when the old housekeeper comes back. And she goes down in the basement and is like, "Oh, she's been gone for a while."
She's so creepy too.
I knew something was gonna happen.
They're both so creepy. The old housekeeper and her husband, they're both just like insane. It's so fun to watch.
The husband especially, like he really freaked me out. But yeah, the scene where it definitely that at that point I was like, oh, this is where we're going. But then the point where they're like all wrestling, and then the family calls and like, hey, we're on our way home. We'll be there in 10 minutes. Like that. From that point on, that I was like, oh my god, I am with this. I need
so fun.
This is so great. The bit like where I lost my shit was like they've just managed to get everything under control, and the family comes in and she's like, oh, do you have that soup ready? And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna serve it. And the old housekeeper is like running up the stairs and just kicks her like and falls, and you have that crack. I was like, oh my.
Oh well, all of that violence is like really visceral. It's like the dime turn that Bong Joon-Ho is capable of to like that kick is funny, but that crack hurts to hear.
Exactly.
I'm laughing, but I'm also, you've got me feeling these, the emotions simultaneously.
We go from rooting for that family of like, oh, don't let him get found out. I would like,
but also don't
like,
kick.
But then also like the fact that she can just like, nope, down the stairs with you. Like it's just.
When you're put in these circumstances, you will overlook other people's well-being super easily.
Big theme of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just so so well from that point on. Is just like it's so like it was already a masterful movie for that beginning part, but like I was like, I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. I'm so with this. I don't care what you do.
So
like,
do you think the housekeeper going to handle it better coming back? She's kind of like, I left something in the basement.
Yeah, it's
like,
just,
I would be like, hey guys, I know what's up. You guys got me fired.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I'm gonna spill the beans. My husband's downstairs. I need to like, you know, deal with this or whatever.
I don't think did she know at that point, or did she not know until they all like tumble down the steps?
Oh, maybe. That's interesting. I just assumed she was like, because it's like we all have secrets or whatever.
Okay.
And well, I thought once she like walked in and saw the fact that the whole family was there.
Did she not? No, she didn't see that. She came in and she thought it was just the housekeeper, and then they go down in the basement, and she's like, "Please let me just slip him some food every few weeks."
She's like trying to move that bookshelf, and she's got like her whole body. It's so funny looking.
That was when I thought, like, honestly, I thought it was because I didn't watch a trailer or anything, but I watched the trailer later, and I was like, if I just saw this trailer. Because they have like this normal kind of bit where it's like, oh, we're gonna con this family, and then that bit happens where they're like, oh man, she's been in the basement for a while, and then you hear her just going and pushing. I was like, okay, good. This is where we turn into like a weird possessed like that's where the zombies come in for me. That's where I thought it was. But yeah, no, that was oh man, it was so good. The everything from
under the table when they're under the table.
Oh yeah.
That is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. The parents like getting it on and they're weird, kind of kinky. Not weird. I'm not kink shaming, but I'm just saying they got their own thing going on. They do their own little thing over here, but they also like throw in a barb about how like what's his name smells bad, and he's kind of oh, I don't smell bad.
But
it's also like I smell bad because I live in this apartment. That I live in
filth.
Yeah, exactly.
The only way I can get bugs out of my apartment is to cover myself in fumigation.
There's a lot of like great iconic shots. For my money, though, which is like the 8th time I've said that on this podcast, the daughter sitting on the toilet smoking the cigarette as like the toilet is blowing up underneath of her is like, oh, chef's kiss. Like it's so good. I love that. Like it's like the it's the film personification of that meme where the dog is sitting in the room that's on fire around him.
Fine.
I'm fine.
It's just everything, like the way that he I don't know how to word this, but like the way that he kind of, well, maybe not necessarily him, but the way that this was like edited too, like very very great. Like I said, one of the best montages I've ever seen from that whole bit of like I think it's from the point where the dad comes in all the way up until when they bring the mom in. Like I think that whole section is like a long montage.
I watch this movie again so bad.
It's so
I gotta
great.
sleep early tonight, but I might mess myself up.
But it's it's everything about that movie is I love it, and it just like we touched on a little bit on it earlier. It really upsets me that there is this prospect now of the American miniseries remake. But
I understand that. I said the Fargo thing, right? And I would also throw in that I really am a fan of Adam McKay's Succession. I don't know how much he is really even touching that anymore, but I really like that show a lot. And if they're kind of gonna do like that show, and like the way they do that show doesn't feel out of place for if we were to use that same tone for a Parasite miniseries. But continue.
It's just I'm just going off the whole. Almost every single time Americans try to adapt good Asian source material, it almost always goes. It's like that thing I said earlier, where there's something thematically kind of lost in translation.
Absolutely.
Where it's just I don't know and we can get into this a little bit more with the Old Boy remake, but it's just almost all the time every decision I find gets made for the worse. And that's what I'm really worried about, is because you have such golden source material here that it just blows my mind that we live in a society where studios have such little faith in audience members to just watch the source material rather than rather than promoting the hell out of this amazing movie, we're going to take this source material and dumb it down for you stupid Americans who can't get past like Bong Joon-Ho said, like that 1-inch barrier of subtitles. It upsets me, but at the same, it's like you said, there are exceptions. So like clearly, with What We Do in the Shadows, I thought like the second I saw a preview for that, I was like, I just so like mad. I was like, I don't care. I'm not gonna watch this.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna recommend people the movie. But then like when you say like, oh man, it's really good, that kind of gives me hope. So
and like I am a true cynic. Like I despise so much content and media. People are like, you can't possibly hate that many things, and I say challenge accepted. I will hate exactly. I'll hate all of it if I can. I want to love it, but I love hating it too.
Right.
So like I'm like definitely cynical. I think it's definitely great to be cynical of like, especially in this day and age we live in, for somebody just taking an IP and just trying to expand upon it. Like I mean, the most egregious one in recent memory to me was Damon Lindelof's HBO Watchmen. Just don't do it.
I didn't even care.
Well,
like,
good. Just, don't. The answer is, if you need there to be a movie of it,
is it a
there
sequel?
is a movie. It's a sequel to the comic.
Okay.
Which is that weird Dr. Sleep kind of thing where it's like, oh, there's a little bit of
we got to tie in some parts of the
collective,
movie too.
A collective like misunderstanding maybe, but it is just a sequel to the comic. But then anybody that just knew the movie, if they're watching that show, then has to kind of get that out of their head. It's a whole. I've wasted so much breath in my life talking about the HBO Watchmen series, but I mean, suffice it to say that it's like, if you need a movie, the Zack Snyder movie is as good a job as we're gonna do at like doing Watchmen. The way to experience Watchmen is in the book, the way Alan Moore intended.
Exactly.
And the way that poor man has said for years and years, where he's like, don't put my name on it. The way, like, it's the book, it's the book, it's the book. And people just don't want that. I get it. I mean, like, it's hard. It's, it's like hard, or not even hard, but like, just watching a movie with subtitles is a little bit more involved because you can't look at your phone.
And so many people, it's like we live in this culture through not really any fault of our own, but media is so more easily consumed than it was like 10, 20 years ago, that people prefer to have just something that they can listen to and then glance at when they want to. And I think that's what kind of breeds that whole. I say I can't believe why a studio would just buy the source material, but it does make sense.
Oh, I mean, I can believe it.
Yeah,
I just wish I didn't live in this reality.
Exactly. It just, I'm hoping it's good. Bong Joon-Ho is at least producing it, so.
And he's
some of
so
it has to be good.
I am just I love. I mean, like, he's one of our greatest living directors that we've got right now. I mean,
in that aspect alone, he's such a good sport. Because if I made this movie that just swept every single award show this year, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do an American series," I'd be like, "Fuck you!"
No, how about
go watch my movie?
Exactly.
Yeah, but he's like, "Oh no, hell yeah, man, go for it!" Like,
another note on that all with just. What a class act that dude was with his best director acceptance. I almost like teared up when he goes to Marty, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing that we are recognizing Marty, because like he's kind of had a tough year. He made a great movie. He hasn't really had a tough year, but he's been.
I have a tough time feeling sorry for Mr. Every single thing I've made ever has been nominated.
But I only on the level where it's like he's also, for whatever reason, Endgame is also being nominated at the Oscars, and then he has his whole thing where he talks about Marvel movies correctly, where he calls them what they are, and then even you saw the Francis Ford Coppola thing where he's like, I think Marty was being nice, because if you had called him what they really are, you would have called him despicable. And I'm like, get him. So I did want Marty to get a little bit of something there, but that was it right there. That standing O, that recognition from like somebody who was like, I won this award, but this is not possible without having been influenced by your work.
By you and
then to turn to Quentin and be like, and
were my cheerleader when nobody else was.
And he's saying something different too, because he's saying, Marty, you like this quote.
You inspired me. Quentin, you gave me an audience.
The thing anyone that knows Quentin Tarantino can say about him is that this guy loves movies.
Yeah.
And so like, that's his contribution, is that this dude like loves movies so much that like he has brought forth this like new auteur.